1,000 miles from home, outnumbered 5-1. The desert wind carried whispers of death, and yet there he stood, calm, confident, just 25 years old, facing the greatest army on earth. This was not just a battle, it was a moment that would shatter an empire and make Alexander immortal, a world-divided narrator. By the autumn of 331 before the Common Era, two worlds stared each other down across the dust and stone of Mesopotamia. To the east, the Persian Empire, ancient, sprawling, and rich beyond imagination. For over 200 years, it had ruled vast lands, from the shores of Anatolia to the deserts of Central Asia. At its head was Darius III, King of Kings. His empire was bleeding but not yet broken. In desperation, he summoned every resource, every last soldier, beast, and blade. Over 200,000 men assembled, cavalry, archers, chariots, and the war elephants of India. He even had scythed chariots, massive carts with spinning blades designed to cut through entire platoons. To the west stood Alexander of Macedon, a mere boy by royal standards, but already a conqueror. With just 47,000 troops, he had taken Asia Minor, Syria, and Egypt. His victories were not flukes, they were surgical. His enemies didn't just lose, they were outthought. And now, on the open plain of Gaugamela, near modern-day Iraq, the two titans prepared to decide the fate of the ancient world. Sound design, ominous horns and marching boots under voiceover. Scene 2, the night before the battle. Narrator: under the clear desert sky, Darius's camp blazed with confidence. His tents shimmered in gold. His warriors feasted, sure of victory. To them, Alexander's force was a grain of sand. But while Darius slept beneath silk, Alexander walked the plain, measuring distance, analyzing space, mapping fate. He and his generals spoke in hushed tones. The battlefield was too flat, too perfect for Persian chariots. But Alexander would turn it against them. He instructed his phalanxes to remain loose, able to part like water. He gave orders to the cavalry: stay light, stay fast. His right flank would draw Persian forces outward, and then collapse the center like snapping bone. His soldiers, Greeks, Macedonians, mercenaries, trusted him with their lives. He was more than a king now. He was a symbol, a myth in the making. And still, he didn't sleep. Scene 3, Gaugamela, dawn of destiny. At first light, silence, then thunder. The ground trembled as Persian cavalry took formation. Banners flew, horses reared, and in the distance, the glint of bronze helmets under the rising sun. Darius made the first move. He sent his chariots, a terrifying wave of iron and death. Their blades whirled like the wings of demons. Thousands of hooves churned the dirt. But Alexander's men stood ready. The Macedonian lines opened in timed intervals. Chariots passed harmlessly through, only to be swarmed and slaughtered by reserve units. Then came the real strike. Alexander, at the head of his elite companion cavalry, began riding right, fast, aggressive, almost reckless. Darius assumed this was the main assault and shifted his cavalry to meet it. It was a trap. The Persian center stretched and weakened. Alexander pulled his men into a sharp left hook, forming a wedge, and drove straight into the gap, the collapse. What followed was not just a turning of the tide, it was the unmaking of an empire. As Alexander's wedge formation crashed into the Persian center, it was like a spearhead splitting through flesh. His companion cavalry, handpicked and trained to perfection, pushed forward with relentless force, not with brute strength, but with deadly precision. Persian troops, crowded and confused, struggled to regroup. The tight formation of their front line, once a wall of discipline, now bent and buckled like hammered bronze. Alexander himself, visible at the front, golden helmet gleaming, was fighting side by side with his men, shouting commands, cutting through elite guards, driving toward one man, Darius. At that moment, the battlefield became a storm. War elephants panicked. Horses screamed and broke formation. Macedonian phalanxes advanced behind the cavalry, locking their shields in a deadly rhythm. The Persians who weren't dying were running, and the ones who stood still stood in disbelief. Darius saw it all. He watched the very heart of his army crumble before him. His elite guards, the immortals, were either dead or retreating. Arrows whizzed past his chariot. His driver screamed. Then, a terrifying realization dawned. Alexander was coming for him. There was no wall of men left to stop the Macedonian king. And so, in the dust and confusion, Darius did the one thing a king of kings was never supposed to do. He fled. He turned his royal chariot and disappeared into the distance, escorted by a few loyal guards, abandoning over 200,000 warriors to face death without their leader. And with that, the illusion shattered. Persian morale collapsed like a sandcastle in a rising tide. Soldiers who had stood proud just hours ago now dropped their weapons and ran. The battlefield turned into a massacre, pursuits, ambushes, screams. The Macedonians gave no mercy. They chased down retreating units for miles. Persian command structures fell apart. Officers were cut down where they stood. Even the war elephants were captured or killed. By the end of the day, more than 40,000 Persians lay dead. Alexander. He had lost fewer than 5,000. And yet, his expression wasn't triumph. It was focus. He knew this battle wasn't just about victory. It was about message. He hadn't just won a war. He had dismantled a dynasty. The legend of Persian invincibility, gone in a single, dusty, sun-scorched morning. The ghost of an empire. In the months that followed, Darius tried to raise another army. He failed. Eventually, he was betrayed by his own men, stabbed in the back and left to die in the dust. When Alexander found the body, he wept, not for the man, but for the end of an age. He ordered the assassins executed, and then, with full Persian ceremony, he buried Darius as a king. But Alexander wasn't finished. He entered Babylon in triumph, not as a destroyer, but as a ruler. Temples were spared, scholars welcomed, locals made governors. He didn't just conquer territory, he absorbed it, adopted its dress, its gods, its rituals. He married Persian women, appointed Persian officers, and declared himself king of Asia. It shocked his Macedonian followers. But Alexander was no longer fighting just for Greece. He was building something bigger. Closing reflections. A new world. The Battle of Gaugamela was not the final chapter, but it was the turning point, the moment where East and West collided, and one man stood victorious over both. From that day on, Alexander was more than a general. He was a living myth, a bridge between worlds, a symbol of ambition without end. The Hellenistic age had begun. New cities rose, science flourished, Greek culture spread from the Nile to the Indus, and though Alexander would die just a few years later, at the age of 32, his name would echo across centuries. Because at Gaugamela, he didn't just defeat an empire, he rewrote the future.